Data, machine learning, deep learning, analytics, and all the algorithms that go alongside it are really today's hot topics. You can't really get away from it. For those of us who've been working in the industry for a number of years now, it's been quite an interesting journey. We've gone from what appeared to be an interesting backwater of technology to something which is now so mainstream that the other day I heard data being discussed in a religious context on today's Radio 4 Thought for the Day program. You know, what does data mean for God? What I want to do here today is talk through some of the applications of data, some of the power that it can bring to us, and then also, because it can appear to be a massive kind of impenetrable wall of acronyms and technology, give you a framework for showing how you can think about data inside your companies and how you can start to apply it. Okay, so I'm going to start off with these three wonderful individuals, obviously Trump and Farage. There's quite a lot of stuff, if you look into this now, there's quite a lot of stuff being talked about inside the press about exactly what actually happened, both behind Trump and what actually happened behind Brexit. And here's a kind of a really interesting quote which has come out from the CEO of Cambridge Analytica, was that pretty much every single message that Trump put out in the campaign was data-driven. And I know that seems a bit weird, but actually now when you stand back and have a look at the campaigns, although it seemed like just random and a bit ad hoc, actually everything that was said was the result of an algorithm, was the result of a targeted, hyper-personalized algorithm, which was meant to achieve certain things inside the electorate, inside the whole voting community. And when you think about it now and reflect, you can kind of see that a little bit, that it wasn't quite so ad hoc and random as it first appeared. So what I thought would be an interesting way to start was to actually show you one of the algorithms that they used, and let's see how it worked and see how that was put into practice. Okay, so here is an interesting slide with some stuff on it by Michael Kowinski. Bobby, is that right? Yeah. Sorry. So he did some research. This man here, this chap here, is in no way related to Brexit or to Trump or to anyone like that. He's an academic and he did some research and he published his research. And his algorithms were taken and then they were exploited. But he worked out that it only takes 68 Facebook likes and you can determine to an accuracy of 95% someone's skin colour. You can determine their sexual orientation, what their political views are, what their, whether they use drugs, whether they have the divorced parents, their age. You can tell an awful lot of them from just 68 likes. And in fact, you can use the same stuff and you can expand it further. 70 likes on Facebook, you can have an algorithm which understands someone better than their friends, 150 better than their parents, 300 better than their partner. And in fact, beyond that, you can actually start to have algorithms which know someone better than they know themselves. It's a bit worrying, right? So I thought, let's try this out. Let's see how this algorithm works for me. So I went through it. And apparently, I have done 189 Facebook posts, 550 Facebook likes, and 446 tweets. Now 447, as I tweeted just before tonight. But to be honest, I can't even remember doing those tweets. I'm not a big Twitterer. But I looked, and there they are. Mostly they're retweets and things like that. So putting that through the algorithm, let's see what we can find out about myself. So this is a bit hard to see, but apparently, if I come over here, my political orientations, and I'm not going to comment on any of this because it's political and religious, so hot topics especially now, but my political orientations are liberal 39%, which is this one, and conservative 31%. So I'm not going to comment. And on this one over here, apparently I am either Christian or none. That's none, not a nun. As everyone kept thinking I was saying. So that's weird, knowing from my Facebook likes something pulling up that information about me. And as I say, I'm not going to comment on it. But go Margaret Thatcher. No, no, that's just a joke. It's just a joke. I promise you. So here we go. Big 5 personalities, another thing the algorithm pulls out. So the mainstay of HR teams. At the top it says, am I conservative or traditional versus liberal and artistic? I'm kind of down the middle, apparently. Impulsive and spontaneous or organised and hardworking? Well, obviously I'm hardworking. And then there are more, so I've got down the bottom. I'm either laid back or relaxed or easily stressed and emotional. So I'm laid back and relaxed, apparently. So that's good news for myself anyway. But I was looking at it going, am I that? Am I that? So does this thing know me? Am I, I couldn't answer those questions necessarily straight off. What else? Oh yes, gender. So obviously Facebook knows my gender, but apparently just by using my psychological profile, I'm actually female. But if we use my Twitter profile, I actually become a man again, which is good news. But it's interesting to see this, that you can see that these algorithms, they're good. They still make mistakes. They're not 100% foolproof. And in fact, this is why as you use anything in data, you need to interpret it, you need to look at it, and you need to be careful with it. Otherwise, you can just be starting to work with wrong information. What's next? And here again is where it falls down a little bit as well. So apparently I did an arts degree, which is not true at all. I literally did data science, data engineering, everything to do with data. So that's wrong. And also apparently I am only 51% single. And I am actually married, so that's got that completely wrong as well. But I suppose on Facebook you could just ask Facebook. You have your status on Facebook, so you can just ask. But that is, that's quite, an interesting profile it's pulled about myself. And I've known that Facebook has been collecting information from me for a while, so I do tend to be a little bit careful about what I share and what I like. But it's just to a certain extent reasonably accurate. So what Trump was doing with this sort of information was that he knew that he would never get, say, for example, the black and Hispanic vote to vote for him. So what he did was he would go and find this information, find someone who was in that area, and rather than trying to get them to vote for him, he would try and suppress those people voting for Hillary. So he would then take Facebook adverts out and send Twitter messages and put out messages about crooked Hillary and talking about how Hillary voting for certain things that were likely to not appeal to that community at all, and to suppress that vote rather than necessarily enhance it. And if you look back at his campaign and you look back at the messages, you can start to unravel this stuff. You can actually start to see how they were doing mass voter manipulation, which is what all political parties do. I'm not making a statement on whether it was ethically good or bad. But it's interesting, isn't it, to see what you can start to do with the power of data. And I think this is why we've got the talk on GDPR later, where I think this is quite important to understand that privacy is important and the use of data is very important. But obviously, we want to be using data for our purposes, and our purposes are good purposes, right? We're a business and we want to be making money, and business is good. Business pays people money, it puts roofs over people's heads, and it puts food on people's tables. So this can be used for potentially mass manipulation, but it can also be used, it's very powerful, it can be used for good as well. So in amongst this, you can do this sort of stuff for your customers. Your customers and your clients do use Facebook, they do use Twitter. And what this allows you to do is when someone comes to your business, they are an amorphous blob. They are just a grey person. You don't know anything about them. And the only way traditionally you can find out about them is by waiting for them to exhibit some behaviour, spend some money to see what's going to happen. And that takes time, and you also don't necessarily know in advance what's going to happen. So what would be really useful using this data is to decorate that person and to understand what they are when they walk in through the door. Are they someone who's just, if we imagine we're in a shop and someone has just screeched up outside the shop window and they're driving a Bentley with, a parrot on their shoulders and money coming out of their trousers, that's potentially a good person you want walking through your shop, as opposed to someone who's come up and they're just driving a clapped-out old Ford Fiesta. Ultimately, you don't actually know the person driving the Fiesta might be turn into a great customer, and you're going to treat them exactly the same. But what you really want to do is to ensure that your message is going out, the people you're drawing into you. More Bentleys pull up outside your shop than clapped-up old Ford Fiestas, and this is one of the techniques you can use to do that. And one of the things you can do is you can take your internal data and you can start to mirror it to this external data. And there's a whole myriad of external data sources and other things you can do to start to understand a little bit more about your customer. So here we can see that actually certain buying profiles, people spend more money with you. And again, when you know this instantly, it's very useful. It's very useful to know that I've actually done some marketing and these kind of people are coming in and these are the sorts of people I'm engaging, because what that means is you can start to tweak and work on your marketing. And we're going to have a talk from Johnny later from Crowdcube. And this is a very important thing for them to do, which is when you're spending money out on the channel, you're spending money out on Facebook and Twitter and in Google and putting adverts, on fixed media on the tube and things. You want to know that the moment someone approaches you and makes themselves known to your company, this person is in exactly the sort of sector we want to talk to. Because if it is, we just spend more money in that channel, and if we're doing some advertising and a whole lot of people are turning up in clapped-out old Fiestas, we just stop spending money in that channel, so we can know immediately. We don't have to wait to learn to see if that person starts spending lots of money. So that's great. So we've used data to understand who our potential audience is. We've used data to refine our messaging, and we've brought people to our site. The next thing we want to do is make sure we effectively communicate with people who are our customers, kind of on a large scale. And this is an interesting slide. I find it interesting, but I find data interesting generally. But what we have here is something which we call chronotype classification. And what each line here represents is a person visiting a website. A person visiting the website, one of these people have had at least 20 sessions, and each one of those sessions has had at least 10 or more page views. And across here, we have the time of day. So this is midnight to 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock. So you're starting to see a pattern emerging. The darker zones are where the heavier browsing behavior happens. So these people we've called early birds. Pretty much all of their browsing behavior, and this is repeated behavior. This is not just someone hitting the site. This is repeated behavior. Happens in the morning. Early birds. These people happen early morning, across lunch. These people in the evening, and these people really, really exhibit. They just hit the site in the afternoon. And if you think back to how you use sites and how you use things, do you exhibit behaviors? Do you do things at the same time? Communicating with people, if you receive a message at the wrong time, you just think, oh, it's just junk mail. But actually, if you receive a message at just the right time, I'm interested now. I will click on it. I'll have more interest in opening that message. So that is a very clear pattern and demonstration. So you can now, not armed with that information, the sort of thing you can do is just make sure you talk to people at the right time. So what you're going to say to these people, you know who they are, you know what time they're arriving. Another thing you can do is you can start to understand the things they look at. And we have this technique called collaborative filtering, which is by watching what everybody does, and when someone arrives, you can start to match people with other people who are similar. And that way you can start to pull out products and services that they might be interested in. So then you can know what to speak to them about. And we're working with a crowdfunder who are a company down in Newquay. They have 500 different projects on their site every single day, with a very wide range of interests. Especially now, there's a lot of stuff on the political stuff. There's a lot of people raising money for the Green Party and various local interest groups and things like that. So actually, just picking out something for somebody to tell them is actually quite difficult. I mean, in fact, the emails we've been sending out, we now send out totally personalised contents to everyone, and actually each email goes out, it covers across about 100 to 200 different projects, and people invest in all of those projects. And then when you put it together, you can put all the segmentation data together, you can put all the tracking data together, and you can get something beautiful. So I've got this up here just because I think data is beautiful, and there we have it. If this was a dark room, we could just look at that, and it would just be amazing. So that's a really good practical use, or two good practical uses for data. One, mass media voter manipulation, which hopefully none of us in this room are going to try and engage in. I don't know. And two is how to use data to really increase your revenues and increase your marketing power, basically. So we've done this a number of times now. And we've seen, by going through this approach, you can actually see an increasing engagement between 12 and even up to 58% in some cases, a real boost in people's engagement in your campaign. And these measures are not just people opening emails, that's actually people spending money just because you're telling them about the right thing at the right time, the thing they're interested in. It's also, you can also turn that round. So you're not necessarily telling someone about something. You can also turn around and say, actually, here I've got a product. Tell me who's interested in it. So you've got some really good cross-selling opportunities as well. So it works both ways. And also, you can also, you're making sure you're reducing your spend. So with one piece of data, piece of analytics, you can really do some great things for your business. But, as I said, that is now kind of a wall of information, perhaps. There's a lot of terminology, and he's thinking, how do I deploy this inside my business? Because that's quite a lot, and businesses tend not to have, the whole strategy together to start off with. So at BiG, we work on something called the data maturity model, which is a step-by-step framework and approach which allows companies to see where they are and then understand how to go on the data journey. Because otherwise it's just scary stuff, right? It's just, where do I start? Okay, so how do I start my data journey? So this is our data maturity model. And it's really interesting for people to have a look at it and maybe just to see where your company is on that. The way the internet, the way business works these days, people tend to use services from various different suppliers. It could be, AdWords, it could be various different email providers, it could be different online accounts packages or in-house packages. And you ended up with data here, here, and here, and here. One of the most important things to start doing is to start seeing what your data is and start integrating it together. So you can actually start drawing out insights from that data. Once you have that, you can then start solving problems. You can start reducing your risk, which is reducing your risk, increasing your revenues, and making your company more efficient. So picking your low-hanging fruit is very important. And then once you've done this, you can start to become competitive. You can start to become differentiating as a business against other businesses. And my goddaughter came to me and said, are the machines taking over? Are we all going to be working in an AI-driven world? And kind of my answer is, I don't think that's going to be the case. What actually is going to be the case, in my opinion, is that we're going to start working with algorithms. We used to work with spell checkers to make spelling easier. But actually now we're going to start working with algorithms, we're going to start working with data. So your company will be working with data, the people in it, clever people working with clever algorithms against your competitors. And if they have clever people and have clever algorithms as well, then you'll be fine. If they are using clever algorithms and have cleverer people than you, then you're in trouble. So this journey is really important. I've shown you the example of how to increase revenue. That was the first example I showed you. As I said, all kind of analytics boils down to three things: increasing your revenue, reducing your risk, and making yourselves more efficient. So when you're going through this journey and when you're thinking about how you want to progress your company through the data journey and the data maturity, think about those things and think about those low-hanging fruits and those easy, quick wins you can get. I'll give you some examples here. So again, going back to Crowdfunder, this is an example of increasing your efficiency as a business. They have, as I said, 500 new projects coming on their site every single day. So that means someone's going to sit down and work out which are the good projects and which are the bad projects. Some of those projects are going to be the next best thing. They're going to raise £1 million. There's fantastic ideas. And some of those projects are going to be just a terrible idea. An idea that someone's put on in the middle of the night. We saw one which was called Save Gerry the Gay Bull. And it was obviously someone just put it on in the middle of the night and just this is funny, this is a laugh. But they've got a couple of people there whose job it is to make sure that the good projects get their help and support and get mentoring. And that's just 500 a day on Monday. That's 1,500 to deal with. That's quite a lot. So here's a really nice, simple piece of analytics, which is just laid out. So basically, people can come in on a Monday morning, they can have their cup of coffee, and they can go, okay, which are the projects we're going to look at? So before they go live, let's have a look. Well, I'm going to pick the green ones. Let's have a look at those. Let's get on the phone to them. Let's discuss what they're trying to achieve, and let's help them out. So that's really nice. It means that those people's job are actually possible. So then the next one is reducing risk. We do a lot of work with the F-35 program, and they don't want to make any more money, and they might want to be a little bit more efficient, but ultimately they want to reduce risk. So this here is a fault tree analysis, where you can list all the conditions, the operating conditions, the operational conditions of the plane, and all the hardware, and then you can see if something fails, what subsequently is going to happen down the line. And then you can look at your mitigations, the mitigations you've got in place, and make sure that this is not going to spiral out into a bad consequence, which is in fact risk to life. So it's kind of really, really important stuff. And Chris later from OneServe is going to talk quite a lot about IoT, deep learning, and how you can put this inside a field service context as well. So my final slide, really, is this one, which we've called kind of the rise of the machines. Going back to the AI taking over, this is the history of where we are with machine learning, with artificial intelligence. And you can see down here, over 5 years ago, we spelling and grammar was very important. And in fact, it's actually got a lot better if you Microsoft, when they built their spell checker in Word, spent a lot of time creating some really, really impressive algorithms, and Google just listened to everybody's spelling mistakes and used an algorithm. So you can see how data is improving that. We then started cracking fraud detection, facial recognition, fingerprints, stuff like that. Where we are now is where I've done lots of talking, where we're going to hear other people talking as well, which is around product recommendations based on customer preference. So that's effectively what I've talked about. We're going to talk about failure prediction in mission critical systems, which is what Chris is going to talk about as well. We've also obviously got one of the things that has really risen quite a lot in the last year, which is these personal assistants, the Siris, the Alexas. So they're sitting here as well, and you know roughly how good those things are. They're okay. They're like that algorithm I showed you at the start. They kind of work and also kind of go a little bit wrong occasionally as well. But like all technology, it's really not slowing down. It's actually speeding up. The world is changing so quickly. These assistants are getting more intelligent. We're going to have self-driving vehicles and drones piloting themselves. So the world is changing, and it's being changing by the application of data and of algorithms around the data. So my take-home message, really, and the things that we've been preaching for some time, is it's really important to get yourself and to start thinking about how to get yourself current within technology. Because if you don't, this stuff's going to happen, and it's like, it's like the housing market. It becomes harder and harder and harder to catch up. So I'm going to leave that screen on there, and you can think about it. I guess we're having a panel discussion at the end, so I shall hand over to Johnny, who's next, who's going to talk about data practical application. So thank you very much for your time.